And we are back, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in again. It's Alex here. Welcome back to my channel. And I got a very, very, very special guest for you guys today. The first female interview that I have. It's coming from one of the people that I love the most, one of my best friends. This girl has been with me for like 11 years. I think we've been friends now, 12 years, something like that, somewhere in that area. So I'm here with the wonderful Brianna Taylor. Brianna, go ahead, say what's up to the people. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
What's up? Brianna. Instagram handle is Brianniful, but my poetry handle is not Instagram. It's Brianniful_poetry. But I'm basically like a cool person, really. I'm laid back and kind of awkward, so I hate that question. Tell me about yourself. I'm like, I'm just dope. Like, what you want to know? That's such a Scorpio answer. What do you want
It really is. But this is Brianna. So as she mentioned, she does poetry. Been doing poetry for a minute now. How long have you been into poetry?
So that's a tough question. Not tough. It's actually an easy question. I've been doing like writing poetry since I'd say middle school, like 7th, 8th grade. But I didn't start performing poetry until about 3.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what made you want to go ahead and start performing poetry?
Honestly, I was at Dominguez Hills at the time, and one of my good friends was auditioning, and I saw like how dope that was, and I was like, dang, like that was super dope. Like I remember when I used to write poetry, and I used to write a lot, and I used to write about all different types of face and makeup songs in high school. Like me and Bria did talent shows and things like that. So I've always had that creative bug to like perform. But uh, her joining the poetry team, I was like, oh, that's actually kind of dope. And the next year, I ended up joining to be secretary. So I just wanted to be in the environment, but I didn't actually want to do anything. I'm more like behind the scenes. I'll kick it. I'll be like secretary. I'll take notes. But she ended up becoming like president, and I ended up becoming vice president. And we really, really, really want to go to CUPSI, which is like a national collegiate poetry competition. So she's like, just try, like just step up, see if you could do it. And like I did. And she was like, oh, that's dope. Like you should really be on the team and perform. And I was like, all right. And then start writing, memorizing the poems, and then performing them. And some of them came out cool, some of them flopped, but that's okay. That's life.
Oh, you mean to tell me the reason why you've made it this far is, and shout out to Bria, by the way. I haven't seen Bria, but shout out to her. She's cool people. But you mean to tell me, is it safe to say Bria then is the reason for you making it this far in the first place?
No, actually, I wasn't referring to Bria. I was saying like Bria in high school is who I did performances with. But it was actually Marilyn. Like
Hey,
Marilyn,
shout
yeah.
out to you one too.
Shout out to Marilyn. Or Astrid. She's another dope poet in LA. But I'm not okay. It sounds like I was jocking her, and I didn't come out that way. It was like I used to do poetry back in middle school and high school, and then her joining the team and us being so close, I was like, this would actually be like something I'm interested in. Like, so I was like, I can just sit back, write, kick it behind the scenes. And then I did have an urge to perform it. I did. I was like, this is something, because I think the last time I performed poetry, like my first time really in front of people, was for my Avid banquet in high school. Like I wrote a poem for everybody and I put everybody's name in it, and like I had like a flow for everybody. And then at the senior banquet, I was able to perform it. So that was like the first time I performed in front of a bunch of people my poetry.
And how was that?
Scary, but it was kind of cool because they heard the poem already. So like when I first wrote the poem, they're like, oh, that's super dope. Like my name's in it. You actually put like, because I put their name and then like a characteristic about them in the poem. And I just like mixed it all together for everybody. So when they first heard it, they're like, that's super dope. Like you actually incorporated me and it flowed and it rhymed and it had all these like cool aspects. So I felt like, I'm dope. Like, hey, shout out to me. But then performing it, like it was just kind of cool to like seal it off, that validating moment. Like it was our last kind of celebratory moment together. And it was kind of cool, like just putting that all together.
That's what's
Shout
up.
out to Avid at Laguna Creek too.
Got pretty good reception from that then. So when you say that some of your poems flopped, was there any ones early on that really stuck out to you that you feel like didn't get the recognition you thought it was going to get? Or kind of talk about one of the ones that wasn't really as successful as you were expecting it to be?
And it was only because I think because of the content.
Mhm.
It was a poem about female menstruation.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I personally liked the poem. It's not a bad poem, so to speak, but I think it just makes too many people uncomfortable, and it didn't really like. And I know it sounds bad, but I like when poems kind of reach the audience and they like, hey, I like that poem. It like shows me some validation, right? I didn't really get that. Not that it was a bad poem, like they clapped and the girls are like, oh yeah, we understand what you're talking about, but no one was like cheering it on, like, yeah, do that period poem. Like no one was doing that. So I don't know. I didn't really like that was one of my flops. Like it didn't really do.
Now, because that I don't really see that as a flop though, because it's not like they said that it was trash or nothing like that. So,
A poem that was trash. Dang, I feel like I have them.
oh yeah, you gotta let me know. There's gotta be at least one, yo, that like has anybody ever told you like, yo, that poem just sucked? Or like did you ever have a performance at least where like you
Oh,
stumbled
I've
words?
had a bunch of bad performances of poems that were good, but I haven't like I try to steer clear of not performing poems that don't do well, like because I try to bounce my poems off of their creative minds. I'm like, listen to this, how does it sound? If they're like, um, or I don't know about that. Like I'm in the process of writing a poem right now that is still like in the mid stages because I have the idea and the concept.
Mhm.
I just don't really know like what direction it's gonna go into yet. But
The
it's
one that
about
I
being
heard.
no,
Okay.
I haven't really shared it, but it's about being a dog. Like I wish I was a dog. And it's a weird poem. So when I explain it to people, they're like, like, and until I get that, like, all right, it's in the place that people can understand it and they actually enjoy it, that's when I'm like, all right, that's the sweet spot for me. But if it's not that, then
And how would you kind of describe like your poetry and how would you say like your content has kind of evolved from like the beginning stages in high school to where you're at now?
um, I think, well, middle school when I first started, my content was all like if I'm being honest, it was all like ushy gushy love poems about like writing my first name next to his last name type. Like it was like roses are red, violets are blue, really. But I just made it longer about how much I liked that person. Like it was terrible. But from that state, well, I guess in high school I kind of made my poetry. I think that's kind of where I developed it. I have like conversational poetry. Like I don't have the it's not going to sound anything Shakespearean or anything like, and I'm declaring to the world, and like, it's not going to sound like that, and it's not going to sound like the cliche representation of like poetry either. It's not going to be like, and I was in the world and I saw the world. Like, it's not like that either. I really feel like it's almost like a monologue kind of, but it's like, okay, I'm having a conversation with you. And when I say you, it's the whole entire audience, but I really wanted to feel like really one-on-one connection. Like it's me and you having a conversation and I'm just kind of going off on like, I'm venting, but then I'm also like trying to get a good point across as well. So it's kind of, I would say like conversational, definitely relatable. Um, and I think it's evolved because in high school it was just like what sounds cool or what flows or what like is like, oh, that's a bar. Like I'm kind of getting out of that. And like, well, not really. I still have bars in my poems, I'm not gonna lie, but I want it to be more like fluid and actually have I want my poems to have more depth. So I think that's kind of have grown. Like before it was like I just want it to sound cool. Now it's like, okay, I want it to sound cool, but I also want it to like have a message. And then maybe it'll get deeper in person. I don't know, but
I feel you, and I like when you said monologue. I feel like that was a really good way to kind of describe your poems. They are really, and I mean, obviously, I don't know a lot about the poetry field, but at least I can say like your poems compared to a lot of other poets that I have heard, it is very different, and you do have like a unique way with your poetry, and it does sound real, and you do a good job of just kind of painting a picture for like what's going on in your life. Like, that's what I like about your poetry a lot, is that you just, I feel like a lot of your content just comes from like past experiences that you've had, or like things that you're just curious about, like just in general. Because you have an interesting mind. I'm gonna say that in like the nicest way possible. I think that's a good way to say it.
I
Like
think so.
like you have a mind that like you just think about just so many random things and just stuff that people just don't really think about. And I think you do a good job of just putting that on paper and just letting the world hear that. So um, I think that's good for you, that you don't necessarily take the traditional approach that a lot of people take. Now, as far as the evolution of your poetry, because you talk about in middle school, it was really just roses are red, violets are blue, compared to now. Did you say that that change pretty much just came from growth, and you, like you said, just not really caring overall about what people think, as far as like if it's just bars, or like where, how did you develop that confidence to kind of step outside the box and be different from a lot of other people?
You know, it's a really good question. It's a great interview. I think with the middle school poems, it was roses are red, violets are blue, because it was like I had a school crush. Well, I had my boyfriend at the time, well now fiance at the time, was like,
That's Mike.
he's good. He's good. Like, but that's really what my content was about. Like, I was super obsessed with that. Like, when I tell you, I had it, not that I don't have it bad, but like in middle school, like really, I have low key like a shrine. Like, if I could pull out pictures now from like things he gave me in middle school, and I'm like, why do I still have this? Like, what is wrong with me? So I think I came from that place, and I think after I moved away and then moved to Sacramento, like when I made that move, I think I just had to grow and then just shift my focus to something different. So I think my poetry kind of like, it shapes with what I'm experiencing in the moment. So you hit it right on the head. Like, it's past experiences, thoughts that I've had in my head that I just kind of bring together, like, oh my God, this, or like this particular situation reminds me of this particular situation. If people can relate to that situation, then you can understand how I felt in this situation. So like I have like a way with trying to put that together. So it is a lot of past experiences, just things that I've seen, things that I've done, people I've talked to. And I've actually used other people's experiences too. Like some of the like stories that in my poems, not that they're not mine, like to some extent, if they're shared with me, they are mine. Cause it's like, I mean, personal property, yeah. No, it's intellectual property. Like, so it is theirs, but like, if you shared it with me and then I explained it to other people, it's kind of mine in a way. Like, I'm sharing your story, or I'm putting it in a way where like I'm getting something out, like for you, or for other people who think like you, or other people who think like me, or things that I've heard on TV. Like, I really try to get inspiration from a lot of places, but it is really what I'm dealing with in the moment.
Right, right. I got you. And that's a good way of putting that. And I want to ask you, what do you think? And this is an interesting question. I don't think anybody has even asked you this before, but with your poetry, do you ever feel like let's just say you have a dope poem and you feel like it's probably the best poem you ever wrote. Do you feel like it's just so advanced, or it's such a Brianna-like poem that it just goes over people's heads and you kind of have to like dumb it down a little bit? Or have you ever just had anything like that?
Yeah, my dog poem, it's not that it's going over people's heads, it's just not connecting. And I think like if I don't have pieces kind of come together, if it's not connecting to at least enough people in my mind, like, don't get me wrong, I can make, at least I feel like I can make, hell, I could just be saying this and be like, I can do this, and it's like, actually you can't. But no, I think I can make a poem that can be for like a small audience, or like only a certain amount of people are going to get it if you've had this experience. But I think that if I feel like not enough people can grasp it, then I feel like I have to work on it still. Like, if I can have something clear come across to a particular audience and the people who I intended it for get it, then my job is done. But I also want it to be understood by as many people as possible, to kind of share those different perspectives, or kind of like allow other people to like see something from somebody else's eyes. So I want to connect it with as many people as possible, but I feel like if it doesn't, then if it still hits my intended audience, I'm like, all right, cool, shoulder shrug. I did what I was supposed to do with it. But if it doesn't, then I'm like, okay, I'm still missing something. I have to tweak. I have to do this. Like, if it doesn't connect for me, it's out. Or it's just in limbo, which is what I'm currently doing.
So is that kind of what you go for? Because I know obviously you want to connect and you want to connect with the audience that you're trying to have it for, but also just for probably, I guess you could say, like the casual person that's not really into poetry like that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of find that balance? Or what if you still make the dopest poem? Okay, let's say you go ahead and intend it for a certain type of audience. They still don't really like receive it the way you want them to, but in your mind, you're like, this is the most fire poem I've ever done in my life. Like, how do you stay committed to yourself, knowing that like this is the best work you could possibly do, but still it's like you're trying to tweak it for others at the same time? How do you kind of like find that balance?
Well, I think I try to find what my intention is, like why I'm even doing the poem. I think that's really important for me if I'm even going to share it. Like I have so many poems that if I don't know why I would do it, it doesn't have, if it doesn't have like a destination or a place to be, then it'll just stay with me. Like it's like almost like an unmailed letter. Like I wrote this really cool thing, but until it has someplace to go, then it's just gonna kick it with me. So I feel like in separating that, like if I have it for an intended audience and they still don't get it, then I feel like if I did the best I could, I did the best I could. But I don't even think I would try to share something if I didn't think that it was able to be received by my particular audience. Like if I still feel like if I, because I always share my poems at different stages at different times until I choose to like finish them, or if I just choose to start something else, or if it branches off. Like I share little bits and pieces, like, oh, I'll share these couple of lines with somebody, and then maybe one day I'll just hit like a writing spree, and then I'll just go off and then almost finish it, and then probably have to come back a couple months later and then edit it, like for actual performance. So like people hear my stuff at different stages, so I feel like when I'm doing that, I'm kind of like like temperature checking, really, like testing the water, seeing how did they respond, how does that relate to my audience, or am I sharing it with someone who's completely in my audience or completely out of it. So that's kind of how I gauge things. But my main part is like finding my intention, like why am I even sharing it,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm gonna share it.
And does that ever like play a role, like, because I'm sure obviously you got to get writer's block. Like, does that ever mess with like your mental at all? Like, kind of talk about, I guess, the process, even in with just trying to go ahead and write a poem. Like,
Oh man.
take us through kind of just like the ups and downs on a regular basis of what you go through with that.
It depends on the poem. So there's, I guess we could start there. It depends on the poem that I'm writing. So if I'm writing for like an assignment, then I just try to turn it out and make it sound creative. Like, not that there's no thought there, but it's not something that I put a lot of emphasis in. It's like, okay, I'm in this poetry writing class. I need a poem about my mother's kitchen. Like, I'm gonna crank it out, try to make it seem like as creative and like thought provoking, but still getting the assignment done. So there's those poems that don't really require a lot of thought. I just try to churn it out based on the assignment.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something about my like personal life, those are incredibly difficult to write. Like I have written some. I don't think they're very good because I don't know, I could just be being vulnerable and being like uncomfortable with what I have to say. And those are in the vault. Those haven't been shared. Like, I mean, I do share them with like some people, like, hey, you want to hear it? Like, and that's like if I really F with you, like here, we could talk. Like, but those are harder to share. And then writing those, it's definitely like an emotional roller coaster, because I can like have my intention, I can have my idea and be like, yes, I'm going off, like I can do this. And then when I actually get into the writing, I can kind of be like, okay, well, what am I really doing with this? Like, how vulnerable am I going to get? And I think I talk about that often, or I go back and forth with myself, like, how vulnerable am I going to get? And the more vulnerable I get, the less likely I am to share. And but the poems that are, I would say, like my slam poems. Like I'm doing this because I want to bring awareness to something, or I want to talk about something that's important to me. I've had a couple of like writer's block moments with those, but sometimes those can be written in like 45 minutes to an hour. Like if I'm really like I have something to say, I have to get it off of me. Or oh, my favorite are venting poems, which I feel like are a lot of my poems. It just sounds like I'm getting something off my chest. But those are the ones I feel like I can share a lot more because it's like easier. Like I'm talking about something that bothered me. Like today, I have a poem when the movie Us came out,
Mm-hmm.
and this I have to just explain the story before I explain the poem. So I go to the movie Us. We get there like right on time. And when I say right on time, we had assigned seats, so it's not like we had to look for a seat. But as the universal thing was twirling and the lights were dimming down, we're like walking in. So I'm like, okay, we're really getting here like right on time. Like the movie is starting. So I get to my seat. That's my seat. I'm like on my phone. I'm like, this is me. This is my seat. And there's a lady there. I'm not gonna say what kind of lady she was. I'm just gonna say she kind of looked similar.
Hey,
Here.
look, I got you.
So I get to my seat and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I think you're in my seat. Very polite about it. Because again, I get it. Like some people are like, oh, well, they ain't coming if they're not coming like right now. So I'm like, hey, you're in my seat. And then she had the caucasity to say, oh, that guy right there is in my seat. And then me and my friend were like, okay, like, what's your point here? Like, you just want to, are you just giving general information? So, and we're getting irritated because, again, the movie is starting. This is a Black movie. I'm excited. I'm rooting for everybody Black, Issa Rae. Like, I'm just, so I'm like, okay, like, so I was starting to get frustrated. I'm like, okay, well, you might need to handle that, but these are our seats. And then she's just like, oh, okay, well, because he's not moving like at all. I think he actually has like um mentally ill or something like that. And I'm like, okay, you're still trying to provide excuses for why you're not in your seat and you're taking somebody else's seat because like I don't know what you want me to do here. And at this point, me and her are like, I'm standing over her, so of course I'm blocking the screen. So then other people in the audience are like, hey, sit down, the movie's starting. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, okay, well, like, you probably just need to go handle that. At this point, my friend's getting really mad. She's like, okay. And I felt so bad because I didn't want, like, the angry Black woman to come out because I know that's, like, a complete trope. They're like, she was really going off in the theater. But I'm like, she's like, yeah, but, like, he's in my seat. And I'm like, you need to go figure that out then. I say it really loud at the quietest part of the movie. You know how like the sound goes up when the globe's going around and it's loud and everyone's like that whole thing. And then as soon as the sound drops, I'm like, well, you need to go figure that out then. And it just looks so bad. So here's the poem now. So I started writing a poem that like almost finished itself in a matter of like maybe 20 minutes or something like that. But I'm like, to the white woman who took my seat at AMC for this 9 p.m. showing of Us. Like, that's how I started it. And at that point, like, I just started going off, like, you did X, Y, and Z. And because, like, it was a poem, it ended up being a poem about white privilege. But it was just kind of like, really? Like, this is what we're talking about when we say white privilege. This is a very passive aggressive example.
Right.
Of white privilege. So I feel like, again, when I have something to say and get something off my chest, especially if something provoked me,
Yeah.
it happens fast. But if it's something like get deep, get vulnerable, talk about yourself, I'm like, ooh, I don't know about this.
Right.
Maybe not.
But that's good though. So kind of with those instances, like it's easy for you to just go ahead and put the pen in the paper. But do you feel like when it's time for you to get more vulnerable, is it just because I'm sure, let's be real, like even when you're in a vulnerable state, like you can still kind of flow off of that, but do you feel like you're kind of just overthinking it, like as far as like what people will think as well, and that's kind of like why it's so difficult?
I don't want to be judged at all, but then a part of me feels like that's what makes you human. But then another part of me feels like, what if what I share is too much, or like, or even still like, if I share something that's really deep, really vulnerable, and I put myself out there and I just shoulder shrug, like whatever happens, happens. I don't want people to be able to take that and use it as ammunition against me. I know it sounds like crazy, like who would do that? But like people do that. Like if I write about stuff that was like, if I write about a real traumatic breakup or something that like deeply affected me, then it's just like, oh wow, how you talking about a breakup and you've been with your man for 10 years? Like I don't want anything like that to like happen or like make me feel like people use it to like do something against me. I think that's probably my biggest issue with being vulnerable. Not like I have a problem with sharing myself. I just have because I have no control on how I'm going to be received. I think that's what really gives me the anxiety. So of course I overthink it. Like if I write this, how does this sound? Okay, maybe if I say it like this, but then if I say it like this, am I really being truthful because I really feel like this? And it's just like it.
Oh, that's tough, yo. That's one of the things I'm gonna start challenging you to do then moving forward is like just work on making more poems like that. So that's gonna be something I'm gonna personally work on since you mentioned it, and we're gonna come back to this later on. So, um, real quick, I just want to kind of just ask you just overall, like, how has poetry impacted your life?
Oh wow, that's a good question. I think it's I have to think because it for sure has like it's not one of those like poetry hasn't affected me. Of course it has. It's affected me deeply. I think in a lot of positive ways. It's allowed me to be more verbal, to talk about things that, not that I didn't talk, period, because of course I'm that person who can talk for days about nothing and I can stay silent about something. So, damn, that's a bar right there. Hold on, I gotta write that down.
Stupid. She really writing it down too. I'm weak. You get on my nerves.
Nothing.
But this is what I be talking about, y'all. This is how she is. When I say she's one of a kind, like, but go ahead. You're not off the hook, so go ahead and.
Oh, so I think, hold on, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought because I was like, okay, talk about this. Okay, what was the question one more time?
How
But
has
I'm
poetry impacted your life?
Poetry has impacted my life in the way that I've been more vocal, like so I'm able to express myself more. So I think on the, I guess, public speaking front, like just on the basic, like able to talk to people, able to talk to groups of people, able to talk in front of people, because like some people would rather like walk over hot coals than give a public speaking anything. So I feel like the fact that I'm even able to do that, I of course attribute not just to poetry. I've always been someone who's kind of been okay being in the front of a crowd, but I think having the spotlight solely on me was a challenge to have. Like I mean, I still get nervous and get clammy and get uncomfortable and get shaky and all that shit, especially like if it's a big performance. But I don't have an issue being in front of people, but when people are actually listening to me, that's when I get more uncomfortable. Like if people like I used to cheer in high school back in the day. So like when I was cheering, I can be in front of like a bunch of people and just do flips and tricks because I feel like everyone's staring at all of us. But then when someone's like staring at you specifically, listening to you say something that probably really touches them, and it creates like a different energy. And I feel like that's what can make me uncomfortable. But growing through that, I think that's how poetry has impacted me. But then also on a communicative tip, if that makes sense, like I'm able to, and I'm still not even good at it. Like I'm not even gonna claim like I can communicate. Like I'm out here. Like I'm really not still, but I'm able to communicate how I'm feeling more or what I'm thinking, and I'm able to like kind of tell stories and analogies. Like I've always done analogies, like you know that, like in class, like what would you do if? um, but I think just incorporating that into my like work, it's like I'm able to say what's up here, and sometimes like it doesn't even make sense up here. So like when I can like put it together and give it words and make it come out, like
Right.
that's definitely something I've learned from poetry. I've learned to be social and more comfortable in my own skin with it. Because I'm super awkward and anxious. Not anxious. I wouldn't say like I'm a like. Don't think of me like a little chihuahua, but like I can really be awkward and say things like, "Really," or just you ain't gotta shake your head that much. Like, yeah.
Yo, I'm not gonna mention it, but I remember the first conversation I think I ever had when I first met you, bro. I'm not gonna say it on here just because I'm not trying to bust you out in front of all these people. But it was a question, first of all, and it was 4 words. I don't know if you could think of what that 4-word question would be, what you said specifically to a lot of people when you
How's
first.
your sex life? I was like, 4 words. What would I have asked him? Yep.
No, that was I'm like, who is this girl? Like, I literally just met you, yo. Like, and we in what? I think I was in 11th grade and you were in 10th or something like that. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, what are you talking about,
And
yo?
it was like when you say like that's literally how we met. I think we just got our seating assignment and we were sitting next to each other, and I was like, "So, how's your sex life?" And you're like,
I was
"What?"
like, what? But that's so dope though, because it's like it's weird, but it's dope because it's out of the norm. It's not something that people are used to. You just nobody asks you that. So that's what makes you so unique. And I think that's why like you're able to have such good poetry and you're able to connect with so many people is that you just are different from a lot of other people. And not even that, because I'm sure other people like they think crazy. I mean, I know I do. Like I think a lot of crazy stuff, but I don't say it out loud because I'm always consciously thinking about what other people think if I say something. As opposed to you, you're just like a free spirit. You're just gonna say whatever you want to say, and hey, if they take it the right way, the way they're supposed to, cool. But if not, it is what it is.
Like,
So, and I think that really like just helps you out a lot with your poetry. So, just to go ahead and wrap it up, as far as 2020, we know it's been a crazy, crazy year so far. But for you specifically with your poetry, what are you looking to accomplish as we can continue to move forward with the year? What are some goals you got with that?
um, well, I have an LLC. Fun fact. So I put Busy Free Productions into its own thing. So I think I want to create more events for it to just kind of be a platform, not just for myself, but for other people. And I feel like a lot of times we need it, but not that we don't have access to it because there are so many like poetry events happening all over. There's website, and I really wish I could plug the website right now. I just know that there is a website that has like a list of a whole bunch of open mics that happen all over the Los Angeles area, like LA County, not LA City. So, but there's so many events. There's like the Poetry Lounge that happens every Tuesday. I can plug that one because that one's a religious go for me. But it's such a community, and I feel like there's so much that you can do with it. So I want to be able to like be part of that for people who feel like they have something dope to say and they want to just be amongst other people who are creative and bounce ideas off of each other, have a place to kind of relax, get a little bit of R&R, like just vent, like vent, but in a creative way. Like don't just go up there and talk about your day. Like, I mean, you can, but like there's other places you to do that, bro. Like, you didn't have to come do poetry for that. But also, yeah, just kind of provide that platform and just have a space to be comfortable and be able to us to like. I like people coming together, laughing, having a good time, jovial. Like, not that I have anything against like darker poetry. When I say dark, I don't mean like negative or anything. I just mean like it's a more emotionally deep experience. Like the traumatic poems are talking about like situations that happen in people's lives that can kind of bring people down. Not that I have anything against that because I think it's very important, but I just like my spaces or like the spaces that I cultivate to be really uplifting and warm and like a place where you feel comfortable. Like I don't like people feeling like, okay, I came here and now I'm like sad unless that's what you need to do. Like I don't get me wrong, I have nights like that too. I'm like, you know what? Let's get dark. Let's cry. Like I want to hear about it because it's a form of therapy. So I just feel like I want to put together places where people can feel
You know,
safe.
and you
Yeah.
can definitely do that, man. So I'm gonna have to hold you up to that. Like you put it out there, so we gotta make something happen with that now for
I
sure.
gotta put it on the vision board because apparently everything I put on the vision board becoming true.
Hey, that's how it works. I be trying to tell people, yo, like this manifestation is real, yo. So go ahead and do that. Now we're about to wrap this up, but I wouldn't be me if I didn't go ahead and put you on the spot. And I didn't tell you that we was gonna do this, but I'm gonna need you to have to go ahead and give us something. Whatever type of poem you want to go ahead and go do that you memorize, but we gotta go ahead and hear something before we wrap up.
Oh gosh. And I feel so bad. I have to memorize so many more poems because even the ones I have memorized are a little rocky now. Um, I'm trying to think. The only one I have is
Whatever you got.
Okay, I'm gonna just go crazy. Shout out to Michael, because again, this poem was inspired by you. But hi, my name's Brianna, and I'm crazy. I wasn't always like this. I swear I was normal once. I think I first know something when I got my first boy crush. Maybe when I got in my first relationship, or maybe when I got in my second. I'm starting to think the problem is not me, it's them. Oh, God, I just remembered something. So there was this one time where I know I was being crazy because I caught myself stalking every single piece of social media he had subscribed to. I knew it was bad when I was 8 months into his MySpace page comments that haven't been updated since 2009, and I still felt a twinge of jealousy when I saw some bitch with braces and duck lips comments less than 3 on a gift that was posted March 16, 2008, talking about TGIF. But March 16, 2008 was a Sunday. Now I know something suspicious. Now I'm on her page. 3 weeks in, and I've looked at every single dirty mirror selfie she's posted just to make sure she isn't a threat. Don't worry, she's not. I don't even know why I was so worked up about it. It's not like she's on his top 8 or anything. I made sure of that. I never knew how handy it would be that he's had the same password since he was 12, but he uses it for everything. Of course he gave it to me. Oh, I mean, he knows I have it. What else did he think I was doing, staring at his phone through my peripheral vision, barely blinking, barely breathing? It took me 2 weeks to get the whole thing, but I mean, yeah, he knows I have it. But like I said, I'm crazy. I didn't mean to be. It just started happening to me. I even went to seek psychological assistance, and these assholes told me my existence is very normal. I basically gave Kaiser a $30 copay for them to tell me that my thoughts are common and not abnormal. But how the hell did that happen? Did you not just hear my did you not just hear my past experience? And that was just one instance. I can give you last year's portfolio. But apparently there's millions of us crazies in this group, and that's why I'm in this group. They say talking about this shit can really help one recoup. There was this other time I asked Bae for a little bit of attention. When I got it, I start tripping. He told me I was pretty and I was all that he thought about, and for some reason, I wanted an argument. Because in my head, I shouldn't have to ask you for attention. You should just give it to me naturally. You should just give it to me naturally. You should just give it to me naturally. So I walk off and he was confused. But how could he be? He clearly knew when my attitude manifested. It's not like it developed randomly without notice or something. If he would have given me attention 20 minutes ago, we would be chilling, watching Power on Hulu, eating fruit with tahini, drinking Minute Maid peach drink, but no. He subjected me to his obliviousness and he ruined my plan to be adored. So anyway, I'm pouring out to y'all my hidden truth that I'm crazy as fuck. And now you have proof. Thank you.
Yo, I've heard that before and I forgot to ask. First of all, super dope. And you are crazy, by the way. For the people who think this is just an act, this ain't an act, yo. She crazy. No, I'm just playing. No, I'm not. But yo, I never asked you this. Like all that, is that, I mean, I'm assuming the psychiatric stuff isn't true. But as far as like the top 8 and the whole MySpace, March 16th, like is all that real, or did you kind of just
Okay, it's based off of like real experiences, but it did not happen at one time. So this is like a collection of experiences. If I break the poem down, it's like if I'm just spilling the truth about the poem now, I feel like this rat. I do know his passwords, not because I'm completely psycho and I got them, but in past relationships, I have done that. Like, I know the person's password, or it was that, like you can swipe and make a little pattern. Like, I knew the pattern because I did look over my shoulder and like I memorized it even when you changed it. Like, I knew what the pattern was. So that was a different relationship. But then with him, I do know his password because he gave it to me, and it has been similar since he's 12. I mean, he's changed it because he's not crazy like people. There's fishers out here. But like it has been reminiscent of his middle school, and I'm like, okay, like it's been the same since you were 12. The Minute Maid peach drink and all that stuff, like that was like a signature drink in our relationship. Like there was one year where he like came over all the time. We had Domino's pizza and Minute Maid peach drink for everything, like, or Papa John's. It was either Domino's or Papa John's. We weren't too specific, but that's true. The MySpace thing, like back in the day, I did see who was on his MySpace and people were commenting things, and I'm like, who is this bitch? But then I'm like, it's old. And I looked at that when I was like in high school. So like in 2009, like I was in high school, 2011, 2012, like that was a couple years ago. Like, dang, you tripping over MySpace? We on to Facebook now. Like it was a time where I'm like, okay, who is she? but I wasn't too psycho with it. But he does, if he is like giving me attention, I just want to have an attitude because I'm like, okay, you're giving me attention, but when I wanted attention, you weren't trying to give me attention. So now I have an attitude. And they're like, why do you have an attitude? I'm like, should have gave me attention. And he'd be like, okay, you're psycho. And I'm like, but I'm your psycho. Like, so yeah.
Kind, y'all. One of a kind. But that's pretty much going to wrap this up. Before we get out of here, go ahead and let the people know where we can find you at on social media.
On social media, you can follow me at my personal page is Brianniful, which is where I'm a lot more social. But anything creative that I do goes onto Brianniful Poetry. That's Brianniful, or Brianniful_poetry spelled normally. And yeah, I'm not even gonna plug no YouTube or anything like that because I don't post any videos.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I'll go ahead and make sure that I put Brianna's description. Brianna's description. I'll go ahead and make sure I put her Instagram in the description box below. And yeah, she's got a lot of good stuff coming out pretty soon. So stay on the lookout for that. Appreciate you, of course, coming on here and just
Thank
giving.
you for having me.
Of
Finally,
course.
I was like, kind of friend. You having all the other friends on? No, I'm just kidding.
I got you. I had to get you on here. But yeah, shout out to you for pulling up and getting this done. And I'll see you guys next time. Until then, we out.